I, Alan Odinson, and this is the Barbarian Lounge podcast. I want to thank you guys and gals for joining me today. We got a pretty cool show lined up. Might be some new information for some of you people. For me, it was something I grew up during these times, so it's kind of something that's somewhat fresh in my head, but I just recently watched some material on it, and it kind of lit that fire again. I figured I'd do a show about it. A lot of people have been talking about it, so we're going to try and knock it out the park today. But before we get started, let's go ahead and get a little bit of housekeeping taken care of before we get into the main content. Our main website is thebarbarianlounge.com. You can go there, check it out, and stay up to date on everything the Barbarian Lounge is doing. We're constantly still trying to make some updates to that site. I've been admittedly a little slow on it. One of the things I've recently done there is update the RSS feed, meaning that you can go there, find that RSS feed that should be on the side of the page, and keep up with all of the Barbarian Lounge's current shows. Some of you guys and gals may be confused by our recent switch from Podbean to SoundCloud, and if you're having trouble finding the Barbarian Lounge, you can go right there, thebarbarianlounge.com. The RSS feed's there. All the new episodes will be uploaded right there on the side, so it will direct you where you need to go. Just click on it, and bam, there you go. You found the show. For some of you that may be wondering, why the hell did you guys switch from Podbean to SoundCloud? Well, we were hacked. Our site was hacked, and yes, if you go there, the site is still up. From the notifications I've received, the site is, even though there's been a cancel order issued on the site, that it will be up probably for about till the end of the month. It takes them a while to get all this stuff pushed through, I guess. I don't know exactly what's up with it. But either way, I'm locked out of it. Whoever hacked it, they locked me out of the account. I cannot change the password. I cannot change the login. And as far as Podbean is concerned, it was I who issued the order to cancel it. I assure you, my fellow barbarians, it was not. Ended up costing me a little bit of cash there, but it's kind of something that I'm trying to absorb and just kind of move forward and not let these fuckers get me down, who are constantly attacking on the outside there. So we have made that move to SoundCloud, and that's where our new platform is. But I urge you, if you want to catch up on some of our past shows, by all means, as long as the site is still active, go to that Podbean account for Barbarian Lounge and go ahead and try and download that shit. Download all of the past episodes and, hell, put them up on fucking YouTube or something. I don't care. I'm going to try to get our YouTube account up and going, but you guys have to understand, I'm working with kind of a dinosaur system here, and I shit you not that it takes me a long time to convert and upload something to YouTube. So they're going to be coming to YouTube. They're probably going to be trickling out quite slowly. So you can find Alan Odinson or the Barbarian Lounge on YouTube. So we got a few things uploaded there. I'm trying to get that channel back up. Honestly, I find YouTube to be kind of a bit of a hassle sometimes. So I don't do a whole lot on it, but I need to hop back on that again. But when you're on the barbarianlounge.com, I urge you to check out our donate button. There you can find numerous ways that you can help support the show. There's a one-time donation that can be done there, and you could just go there, click on it, and whatever you want to leave, $1, $5, $10, $100, $1,000, your life savings, whatever it may be that you feel you would like to donate to the Barbarian Lounge, please, by all means, do so and help the show. Because I tell you, all the money that comes in, it goes right back into this show. It helped me get a little bit of a kind of a portable sound booth here, so I can upload better audio quality. So a few of you guys have noticed the new audio quality that we've got here, and it's I tell you, it's very appreciated. It also helps to provide protection for our different websites as well. It costs money to get good high-level protection on a lot of these websites. And the sites that weren't hit were the sites that people have paid to have protection on. So, the Podbean was kind of a free hosting site, so there wasn't a whole lot of protection that was added to that. But I assure you, the barbarianlounge.com, also our member site, those things are protected. Which that is a nice little segue right into telling you the best way that you can support the Barbarian Lounge is by going to our member site. That is Patreon, patreon.com/the Barbarian Lounge. You can go there, donate a minimum of $1 per episode, and you will receive all of our shows ahead of schedule. So you usually get those a few days early. So if you just can't wait for the Barbarian Lounge, that's a good option for you. Plus, you also get 4 additional broadcasts each month. Yes, you think, well, the Barbarian Lounge only does 4 shows a month. No, we do not. We do 8 shows. But if you're not a paying listener, you don't get to listen to half of them. So by becoming a member, you'll receive exclusive access to those exclusive shows from the Barbarian Lounge. So you can go there, $1 per episode. I don't upload any more than 8 episodes per month. So that ends up being for just $8 a month, you can support this show. I challenge you to find another quality broadcast like the Barbarian Lounge that will offer you a membership that cheap, okay? Because I'm telling you, even though this membership is affordable, you are receiving, it is vastly undervalued because you are receiving a lot of work, a lot of quality, and a lot of content. We're going to be uploading some video content that's going to be free for all members. So if you're a member, that's another perk that's coming to you completely free from me to you saying thank you. So, we need your support here. So that's the easiest way to do it. We've got a few new patrons. Shout out to you guys out there. You'll have a new episode uploading probably later this evening or tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Our sponsors, OdinsonArchery.com, traditional bows made from non-traditional materials. Get all of your archery gear from Odinson Archery. We just completed a sale there at Odinson Archery, and not going to be another sale for a while. The next place you'll be able to take advantage of some products from Odinson Archery in person is going to be at Blade Show. Going to be at Blade Show in Atlanta the first weekend in June. I think that's June 2nd through the 4th. You can find me. I'll be the guy walking around with some pretty unique gear. So I've got a lot of stuff that I'm going to be debuting there at Blade Show. So we might even get a live show from Blade Show while I'm there. Live podcast. So we'll see how that plays out. So, but also check out Mitacon, MitaconUSA.com. I'm going to do my commercial voice here, so please bear with me. Mitacon, with a proper diet, supports the cell's fastest, most effective absorption of natural nutrients in each 250 milliliter bottle and sustains the body's mitochondrial generation of usable energy key to producing ATP, the energy-rich fuel the body needs to achieve peak athletic strength, performance, endurance, and recovery. MitaconUSA.com. You can go there, tell them Odinson sent you. And my boy Ben, he'll hook you up. I urge you to get your hands on that. I got my trusty cup with me here. I actually don't have it in my regular cup. I got it kind of in a little bottle here. So I got it. You can shake it up a little bit here. You don't want to shake it up too much. It's got a tad little bit of carbonation in there. But that's some good stuff. So I will be drinking it throughout the show. We'll see. Hopefully it can keep me focused. Guys, I'm full of a little bit of piss and vinegar today when I start talking about this particular subject I'm going to get into. So without further ado, let me jump into it. I've been running my mouth here for about 8 minutes. So let's get into this. Today, folks, we're going to be talking about an incident that happened in the early 90s. We're going to be talking about the massacre at Ruby Ridge. The massacre at Ruby Ridge. Now, a lot of you may not know a whole lot about it. You may have heard about it, and you've probably heard official stories and all this and whatnot. But a lot of people aren't really down with the specifics that occurred there. It's something that I heard about, as I talked about in the early 90s. I make no mistakes about it, guys. I grew up in that whole militia culture. That was my father was into that. A lot of my family were into that sort of thing. They were. And I know a lot more about that culture than a lot of people do. There's a lot of a whole lot of misinformation about that type of culture. But during this time, there was a lot of stuff going on, man. Like you just would not believe the amount of things that was going on with a lot of the different government agencies and the push to eradicate that culture. And eradicate it they did. Now, it did rise back up a few years ago, but I watched the militia culture die. I mean, completely die almost overnight after the incident happened in Oklahoma City. And that is, I'm just going to tell you right now, before I get started here, Oklahoma City is going to be a show that I'm going to do. I'm trying to get a guest on, who he knows his shit about this. There have been documentaries and stories about Oklahoma City, but I know a motherfucker who can tell you some shit. And that's the guy I'm trying to get on this show. I'm not going to toss his name out just yet, because all you other guys will try and jump on him. So I like to keep my sources kind of tight sometimes, so I can be the breaking news guy, you know. But I'm going to try to get this guy on the show, and I'm going to tell you, he is going to, if I can get him on here, he is going to blow your mind about Oklahoma City. So, you know, but when Oklahoma City happened, it absolutely destroyed the militia culture overnight. I mean, completely destroyed it. It was unreal. I mean, guys weren't talking. You know, all the literature wasn't being passed out. I mean, the training stopped. The units disbanded because nobody wanted to be connected to that. So, and if you listen to this guy's story that I'm talking about, who I'm trying to get on, it might make you kind of raise an eyebrow to that whole thing. But that's another story for another day. But today we're talking about Ruby Ridge and the incident that happened up there. So we're going to break down the story a little bit and break down kind of how this thing played out and basically why it is important for you to understand what happened there when it comes to those of you who are starting groups, those of you who are starting tribes, those of you who are looking to expand and bring in new members and all these things like that. Some of the things I've been talking about, you guys think sometimes I'm just paranoid and sometimes I just kind of rattle off, but these are things that I've learned from experience and things I've seen in the past. And this story is a fine example of how shit can play out if you don't vet your people too well. So let's get into the story a little bit. So first off, just a tad little bit of background on it. So with Randy Weaver, you know, where he was growing up at, it was right around in Idaho area. There was basically due to the economy at that time. Now this is going back to the 80s now. The economy at the time was starting to fall apart. The farming industry was going under. It was tough times economically. So, you know, at the time, Randy Weaver was working at a John Deere plant. Well, obviously, when, you know, people are selling off all their farm equipment and the farming industry is taking a big hit, well, obviously, plants like that are going to close. It was an economic downturn, and he was looking for a way out, which a lot of us are right now. A lot of us, man, in the tribal community especially, everyone's talking about, you know, getting a place in the mountains and, you know, just living a simpler life and all these things like that. Well, this is what Randy Weaver was working on right now. Him and his wife, he had a family. He had decided that they were going to move up to the mountains, in the out west. I think they said he was like 15 miles from the Canadian border. So that gives you kind of an idea of where he was at. But they were going to move up to the mountains, and he found him an excellent spot. That spot he had was literally at the very top of a mountain, like a mountaintop. I mean, just as far as strategic locations go, it doesn't get much better than that. You've got an overlay of the land. As far as the snowfall, you're going to get some thicker snow, but a lot of the stuff's running downhill. So if you're towards the bottom of the hill during snow, once that snow starts going away, you're going to have to worry about issues with flooding. You don't have to worry about issues with avalanches. So there's advantages to where he was at. You know, even if you're talking about from a fighting position, well, he had the high ground, so that was a good spot. And one of the things that kind of led them there, his family was very much into religious, in the whole Bible prophecy thing, which in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of the militia culture at the time, the foundation was this biblical prophecy. The end times was coming, you know, end of days. We could see these things happening and all this stuff like that. Everyone was afraid of Hillary Clinton. Yes, that's true. Even though Bill Clinton was in power, everyone was afraid of Hillary Clinton. She was the whore of Babylon, right? Well, you guys dodged a bullet on that one with her not getting into power, let me tell you. Hillary Clinton's always been the terror that has haunted the militiamen, I guess you can say. Or anyone who's interested in freedom. Hillary Clinton has always been there. She's always been at the top whenever bad shit has happened. Her and her allies. But, they decided, with seeing how everything was going, they thought to themselves, you know what, we're going to try and get out of here. So we're going to go ahead and get out of here. I think the end times is coming, which, people have been predicting end times all the time. I'm of the opinion, even though I talk about prepping, I'm of the opinion that you don't need to have some kind of end times prophecy to be into preparedness. You don't have to. I mean, the end times, that could be anything, right? People have been calling for the end times all the time, and guess what? Humanity somehow always manages to crawl back up again. Preparedness is a different story. But a lot of people are driven towards preparedness by end times prophecy. So anyway, Weaver and his family, they moved to this mountaintop there. And obviously, if you're living, they were pretty much living in Spartan living conditions. No running water, no power, no electricity. All these things were put aside. So, I think the kids had some TV, but eventually that stuff was gone, which I think is probably, at the end of the day, probably a good call. Some people would think I'm a nutbag for that, but I see the inherent dangers of television entertainment, especially in young people, especially when their minds are developing. If you follow cultural trends and the changes in cultural trends, a lot of it happens in the entertainment industry. It always has. So I can kind of see where that's coming from. But needless to say, when you have all these things, you're up on a mountain, you don't have power, you don't have running water, you don't have all these things like that. You're gardening, you're hunting for food, so you're basically a self-sustaining family. That creates a very tight-knit family. A massively tight-knit family. You've got, because why? You depend on each other. And the same thing goes for tribal communities. That's why tribal communities are so strong. It's why they've always been so strong. On my episode that I did for the members, the 4-part episode of the Warrior Ethos, we talked a lot about tribe and the importance of how tribe was formed. The actual initial things that led to the reasoning behind why you want tribal formations. And one of those is out of necessity of a self-sustaining culture, and that's obviously what the Weavers were doing here at this time. So it's a very tight-knit family. They're dependent on each other. Everything they do really kind of depends on each other. We depend on you to garden. We depend on you to hunt. We depend on you to cook. The family just becomes very tight-knit. And as I said, tribal cultures, that's the same thing you're going to have, possibly on even a larger scale. This family you're looking at, I believe it was Randy Weaver, a friend of theirs, was there. Guys, his name slips me at the time. His wife, and they had 3 children. So, tight-knit group, all working together, common goal, stay up here on this mountain, and we've got a good location, self-sustaining. There you go. So, not too far from where the Weavers were was an Aryan Nation camp. Oh, the evil Nazis, right? There was an Aryan Nation camp that was not too far away. So the Weavers started actually going to this place and attending some of their little meetings. Of course, they have, these Aryan Nation places. A lot of people think that when you go to an Aryan, I've never been to one. I'm going by some of the things that I know from people who have. But, a lot of these things, they think when you go to like an Aryan Nation thing or some kind of compound or even a militia compound that it's just a bunch of people running around with guns going, rah, rah, rah. It's like a military base. Mostly it's like a lot of families hanging out and cooking and drinking beers and shit. It's not like some kind of, nutbag seminar or something, right? But they started attending these things. A lot of the reasons why they said they started attending these, and and this comes from the family themselves, was because of just camaraderie, just hanging out, and they wanted to be around other people. There is a call, even though they were self-sustaining and living by themselves and everything. There is a natural call in people to want to be around other people, right? Especially other people like them. Okay, I know that's hard for a lot of people to swallow, but believe it or not, people like to be around other people that are like them. All right, but they started attending these things, and these things can get, some of them. There's no like uniform policy throughout a lot of these white nationalist groups. And I would say the Aryan Nation falls more into a white supremacy group. Some people from the Aryan Nation maybe listen to this and they're like, "What?" But I would say that most of the ideology I hear kind of falls under that category. And you guys know what I think about the whole white supremacy idea. I've seen some white people who I would definitely say are not supreme in any sense. But that's another story. But either way, the Weavers listening and everything, they hung out and they went to some of these meetings and all these things like that. Well, they never ended up actually joining the group because there obviously was some things that they're like, we're not really down with that, I mean, I don't really buy into that all the way. So, but either way, they were attending. And at the time, a lot of these groups were being painted by the U.S. government. They were being neo-Nazi groups, Aryan nations. They were all being painted as these terrorist groups, right? They all wanted to overthrow the government, and they wanted to bring about this whole white nation and all this stuff like that. But let's be honest, and I've talked about this even in the ethno-state episode. Most of these guys, and I'm going to say in the 95 percentile, are just flap and trap. Okay, I mean, these guys, there's no, just in case you're wondering, guys out there, the best of my knowledge, there's no real viable plan to create a white nation, okay? I mean, yeah, there's some guys out there that have the whole hope thing where they're like, we're one of these days, this is going to happen. And it's like, yeah, okay, there's a lot of logistics that don't play out in that. Listen to my episode on the ethno-state, and you'll know what I'm talking about on there. But either way, this has always been the way it's been painted. Whether it was a militia group, I know the militia groups were always painted as neo-Nazis and shit, even though there were, surprise, surprise, black people at the militias groups sometimes. Sometime at the training. You're kidding me. There's some black people out there that don't like the federal government? Isn't that something? And there's a big misconception with groups who are against government, as opposed to groups that are looking to overthrow the government. I haven't seen any of these groups who have actively sought out with a viable threat to overthrow any sort of government. Okay? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous to think that some of these groups were out there because, let's be honest. I mean, and sure, there's probably a lot of them out there that talk about it. There's probably a ton of them out there. But let's be honest. Prior to the FBI actually saying, you know what, we need to investigate these guys as domestic terrorists because they're talking a lot. Was there any indication, attacks or anything like that carried out on a grand scale by neo-Nazi groups? I can't think of any. Not on a big scale, right? Oh, well, what about World War II? Oh my God. Jesus Christ. How far back do you have to go? We're talking about here in the United States, okay? But, at the time, during these times prior to this, the Weather Underground, the violent leftists and communists were out there doing things. But you know what? Where was those investigations, right? Where was that threat? Okay? So, I always laugh when I hear about these supposed neo-Nazi groups that are going to overthrow the government. It's like, give me a break. Listen to these guys. Most of the time, groups that are labeled neo-Nazi are actually just white nationalist, which that's a big difference than white supremacy, guys. The words actually mean things. A nationalist and a supremacist do mean things. But either way, you might be like, well, I don't like white nationalism either. Okay, that's great. But here we go right back to that whole First Amendment free speech thing. Surprise, surprise, just because these guys love themselves, right? They say, we love the fact that we're white. That doesn't automatically mean that they hate you. It's the same for like a black nationalist guy. As long as he's not talking about killing the white folks, well, okay. You love being black. You love your heritage. More power to you, man. I actually promote that. I hope you do. I really hope you do love yourself and love your culture because that's very important for the future of your people. When it starts drifting into this world of, we're going to have to kill a bunch of people and, we're just going to be us left, well, then we got a fucking problem. And I don't give a shit what color your skin is at that time. When you start talking that nonsense, we've got a problem there. Okay? But either way, going back to the story before I drift off into another topic, the federal government felt like they needed to infiltrate these neo-Nazi groups. So that's what happened. The federal government infiltrated this particular neo-Nazi group, and one of the agents there had actually recognized Randy Weaver and started to talk to him. Okay, undercover FBI agent started talking to him, and so he's talking to Randy Weaver, and he says, I hear you're looking to make some money. You know, they kind of became friends. This was an ongoing process. He didn't just meet him and go, hey, pal, I got something for you to do. No, it was an ongoing process where he's talking to him, building up rapport, building up friendship with him. And he convinces Randy Weaver, hey, you know, you want to make some money? I got some shotguns here that I need the barrels sawed off on. You think you could do that for me? And Randy Weaver, you know, make a little money. Hey, nobody knows. It's just going to be a little quick saw job. Done. So he saws the barrels off. Was it a crime? Absolutely, it was. It's a federal crime, right? You want to break the law. I believe, if I remember correctly, that he saw the barrels off. I want to say it was a ½ inch. I could be wrong on that. I'm almost positive he saw them a ½ inch under legal length. So somehow sawing that barrel a ½ inch under legal length all of a sudden made it more dangerous of a weapon. It became a weapon of mass destruction, right? I mean, oh my goodness. What's going to happen now? That shot's going to go all over the place. So we can't have that, you know, because that's dangerous. So anyway, what you have here is you have, you know, this guy Randy Weaver, he wasn't just out making his money off selling sawed-off shotguns, okay? This was a guy who was living off-grid, okay, approached by a federal agent, undercover, and convinced and pushed into doing something illegal. Am I the only one that sees a big fucking problem with that? Okay? This isn't a guy, it's not like the FBI went out and found a guy who was into illegal arms dealing, who was into selling, non-NFA compliant firearms. It's not like that's who they went out and found. They found a guy who they convinced that it was in his best interest, that he could make a little money on the side, you know, give you a couple $100, just saw these off, get your hacksaw, saw them off for me, and, I'll give you a little bit of money. Ain't no thing. We're all pals here, right? That's who they went out and found. And why did they do this? They were looking for a patsy at the time. That's exactly what it was. Because they knew that after they could get him to do this and give them back to the federal agent, that he just committed a federal crime. So what they ended up doing is they arrested Randy Weaver. They arrested him, took him in, and they said, look, we're going to need you to turn as an informant. We need you to be an informant for the FBI and inform on this Aryan Nation group here, because we think they may be into some stuff. So we need you to be our informant for them. And if you do not, then we're going to take you to jail. We're going to put you in jail, and that's going to be that. So what are you going to do, Randy? What are you going to do? Well, Randy Weaver said, no, I'm not going to do it. What? You dare tell the King's Guard no? Well, you must be punished, Randy Weaver. You must be punished. So throughout this whole thing, he's getting ready to go to trial. He had to put up a bond, and he had to put his house up for bond. That's all he had, right? The guy didn't have a whole lot of shit. They were living self-sustaining at the time. So he didn't have a lot of stuff. So they took Randy Weaver, and they arrested him. He put up bond, put his house up for bond. Okay? Put his house up as bond, as collateral. So if he lost his trial, what did that mean for his house and his family? It means they lost everything. Okay? For people who had nothing, the only thing they had in life was their property and their home and their family. Because the United States federal government wanted to create an undercover stooge to infiltrate their non-existent terror group at the time, because they wanted to do that, they threatened to ruin this man's life. They talked him into doing some stupid shit. Just saw these barrels off a little bit. The fucking NFA, oh, you broke the NFA guidelines. As if those really hold any fucking relevance. It's a bunch of archaic bullshit. But hey, it's the law, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that the guy would not have broken the law had he not been convinced and, yes, entrapped into committing this crime. He was a family guy. They were family. A family out there hanging out with, hey, they were hanging with the wrong group, I would say, right? But you know what? It's like, oh, well, those are evil people. You know, they were Aryan Nation. Here we go right back to the fucking First Amendment again. Okay? Well, they can't say that. Why? You don't have to like it. Don't fucking listen. Well, I don't like what's on TV. Turn the channel. I don't like what you're saying. Turn off the radio. Just because people say inflammatory things does not automatically mean they're going out to fucking kill everybody. It may be a sign, and it may be something to monitor. But when you move past the level of monitor, when you put an agent in place and start telling them to, all right, you know what? Why don't you convince him to do something illegal? You know, hey man, I didn't convince anybody to do anything. I just brought it up and asked him if he would do it, and he did it. So, you know, I offered him some money. Come on. Come on. They took advantage of this guy. They did, plain and simple. They wanted him to turn. They needed an undercover agent. They needed a guy who could get deep into the movement, which Randy Weaver had been there a while. He had plenty of rapport with the group. They needed an undercover agent, so they got him to do some illegal shit, threatened him with arrest, threatened him to lose everything he had. So once they had this arrest against him, they had his home, they had all these things on bond, he was going to lose everything, and they said, you know what? You either lose everything or you work for us. Randy said no. So when it comes time for his trial, he didn't show up. Randy Weaver didn't show up. I mean, the guy knew how this was going to play out. Because let's be honest, once he's gone, is his wife and you know, young son and everything, are they going to be able to survive up there on that mountain? There's not going to be a mountain. They're going to lose everything. If there's ever a case of somebody being placed between a rock and a hard place, Randy Weaver's situation definitely just maps that out 100%. So he didn't show. He didn't show, and obviously when you don't show for your trial, well, that gets slapped right up to the U.S. Marshals. So the Marshals are there to, you know, get an arrest on you, right? They're here to bring you in. So they did this whole threat assessment. This was pretty interesting. They did a whole threat assessment on Randy Weaver, and they found that, you know, oh, this guy, he's a militant former special forces guy. He wasn't, by the way. He was in the army, not special forces. Former special forces guy, and he's got and his wife is willing to kill everybody and the children, and they're not coming down alive. It was just a completely ridiculous, fanciful, dramatic, ooga booga scenario mapped out by the marshals at the time. The federal government was indeed fucking up in this assessment. They created a monster out of a family. You know, that they had, the family they pictured up there was like the Firefly family from Devil's Rejects. That was pretty much the family they had painted up on top of that mountain, as opposed to the Waltons. Okay. You know, it's not like, you know, criminal record, where was it? You know, all we had was this one violation, you know, and the guy didn't show up for trial, and they were going to sell him down the river. Let me tell you, if you don't think they were going to sell him down the river, talk to people who've worked in law, and they will tell you that they have seen agents sit up there on that stand and lie, just straight out lie, to get somebody put away, ruin their lives like they're playing some kind of game on the Xbox. They can just, you know, do whatever they want. They can play God on it. But this whole threat assessment, you know, they created this criminal family, and so, long story short, the FBI, the marshals are staking out the whole area. You know, it's a very touchy situation. You can't just run in there. You run in there, I mean, according to this threat assessment they had, well, it's going to be a horrible firefight. We don't want children to die, and yada yada yada, all these things like that. So, long story short, the FBI is out walking around the compound one day, you know, getting surveillance and whatnot. And as they're approaching, they alert the dog. The family dog starts barking. And, you know, the dog is closing in because he sees something. Here he comes. The dog is approaching. So this is where things kind of kick off here. So when there's two stories that happen here. So let's go with the first. Let's go with the official story from the U.S. Marshals. The official story from the U.S. Marshals is that they show up and they meet at like this kind of cross area where the roads kind of cross. They meet the dog and Randy Weaver's son there, and the U.S. Marshals call out and they say, "U.S. Marshals," they alert them, "You're under arrest," or whatever the fuck, and the boy. And I believe the friend's name was Kevin Harris, now I think about it. They dive for cover and start exchanging gunfire, right? And during this whole gunfight, one of the U.S. Marshals gets killed, and the 14-year-old son, Samuel Weaver, he gets killed as well. That's the official U.S. Marshal story. Now let's talk about what the family's official story is, okay? The family's story is that as the dog is approaching, the dog's running up, and one of the officers shoots the dog, because the dog is obviously running at the officers. The officers shoot the dog. 14-year-old Sammy freaks out and goes, "You shot my dog, you son of a bitch," and pulls his rifle up and fires one shot towards the officers. They don't know who they are, because all they see are guys in fatigues with, camouflage face paint on, which I'll get into that in just a second. And fires a shot at the marshals. Marshals return fire, killing Sammy. Okay? Now that's the story from the family. Now the question becomes, okay, well, what actually happened there? Well, if you watch a lot of this information, I would urge you, kind of what spurred me onto this, which I should have said at the very beginning, but I'm a slack ass host. The documentary on Netflix on Ruby Ridge covers a lot of this, so take it for what it's worth. That's a PBS documentary too, by the way. But one of the things on there that I urge you to listen to is the gunfire pattern, because they have the actual surveillance video of when the shooting starts. You don't obviously see the shooting; you hear it in the distance. But I want you to listen to the shooting. The shooting goes pop, 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 pop. Okay, that's what the shooting sounds like. Now, I want to ask you. Let's take it from. Let's put yourself in the shoes of the marshal. Okay, if there's a gunshot fired at you, are you going to wait for the second gunfire before you open fire full force? Okay, is that what's going to happen? Because according to what they said, it was that they took cover, they called out who they were, they shot, and marshals returned fire. Oddly enough, if you listen to the actual gunfire pattern, it kind of sounds like pop, shoot the dog. You son of a bitch, you shot my dog. Pop, Sammy Weaver returns fire. Pop, 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 pop. Gunfire erupts from the U.S. Marshals. So, obviously there's no camera footage of what actually happened, but if I am listening to the gunfire pattern, and then I listen to the family's official story, well, I hate to tell you, U.S. Marshals, you're not looking very good right now, okay? Because we know the policy towards a dog that is barking, running aggressively at a police officer. They will shoot them. And I'll be honest with you, dog can fuck you up. It can. I can't say that I would not do the same thing, right? Sammy Weaver's body, when they found him, he was shot once in the elbow, once in the back. Kind of sounds like somebody who was fleeing. And no, that's not some kind of fucking hands up, don't shoot thing. That's the actual autopsy report. Once in the elbow, and then in the back. He probably was running after he fired the shot. And, they were fired upon, and I don't blame them for shooting back. But we have to also think about some things here. I'm going to tell you right now, and I've said it numerous times. If you shoot at my dog, if you shoot my dog, the fight's on, guys. And it's just an animal, animals don't have the same value of human life. Let me tell you something. I value my dog's life, over most people that I meet. Okay? Most people I meet are disloyal. My dog's loyal. Most people I meet are assholes. My dog's sweet as fuck. Most people would fucking bail on me first chance they get. I've seen my dog willing to die, to protect me. So, fuck you. Most people I wouldn't give a bucket of piss for their future. My dog's a different story. It's kind of one of those things for some people just think that's ridiculous and all these things like that. Hey, it is what it is. I'm just telling you straight up. Somebody shoots my dog, the fight's on. And in the same manner, you open fire on the dog, I consider that the first shot of the fight, guys. Okay? Oh, well, the dog was going to hurt me. Well, motherfucker, you wasn't supposed to be here. Because here's the thing. You could make the argument that, well, the U.S. Marshals had the right to be there. It was all this was going on, that was going on. But let's be honest here. I mean, if you watch the video, you see these guys walking around. There's no identifying markers on them. You don't know who they are. Okay? There's no ID on them whatsoever that says U.S. Marshals. These guys are decked out in military fatigues. They're wearing fucking camouflage hoods. And they're walking around with ARs walking through the woods there. You have no clue who the fuck just shot your dog. And who knows if they're going to shoot you. Next. All I know is these two guys in camouflage that look like freaking, Chechnyan super soldiers just stepped out of the woods, shot my dog, and they're pointing a gun at me. I'm probably going to think there's a fucking fight getting ready to happen. And yes, there's going to be an exchange of gunfire. This is one of the problems that I have with the militarization of police. If you dress guys in military garb and you outfit them with all this military shit, the line between peace officer and soldier becomes completely skewed. Completely skewed. Not just for the people you're protecting, but also in the minds of the individuals that have it. If you dress them like military and they act military, a lot of them probably don't even come from the military and they're going to think they're military. Or they're former military and they revert right back to the war zone mentality. I don't like that in a police officer. When I went to Camden, Tennessee to do the fight with tactical response, I was so pleased to walk in there and walk in the diner and see police officers dressed as police officers. I looked at them and I didn't think there was a military force in there. I thought to myself, man, those are police officers right there. And they carried an air about them of, you look at those guys, those are police officers. There's nothing to be afraid of with them. I'm getting fired up. I'm knocking all my shit off the table. There's nothing to be afraid of with these guys. They are there to protect and to serve. They're not in some fucking war zone. This has always been one of the problems I've had with the militarization of police. You cannot outfit people in military garb and expect them to act like a peace officer because you're dressing them in the clothing of war. They're not there to. When you do that to people, it creates a mindset. It creates a mindset of willingness to fight. And I understand. Oh yes, they need it, and this and that, and terrorists and blah blah. Okay, I get that. But have the gear ready. You can still have a strong fighting police force that doesn't look like a fucking military operation every time they roll in. And that's what these guys look like. So what do you think is going to happen when you see guys in military gear, no identifying markers on them, they blast your fucking dog? Guess what? It's time to fight. Plain and simple. So after this happens, one of the U.S. Marshals was killed. So now you've killed a U.S. Marshal. Well, guess what? Now the entire weight of the empire is getting ready to come down on you. Because that's how it goes. Unlimited resources, unlimited money, unlimited men, unlimited bullets. They're coming. So the agents there, they bring in, basically they adopt military rules of engagement. Meaning, if you see an armed adult, you already assume that they are a threat, and bang, shoot them dead. Okay? So they bring in the FBI HRT team. Okay? They bring in this, and that's basically like the super SWAT. That's my layman term for the FBI HRT. They're trained kind of like super SWAT, okay? They're sent in, and basically they come in, they surround the cabin, okay? And this is when things really take a fucking crazy turn. So, reports are that Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris were going to go out and see the body of, because they had brought the body back to the cabin there, and it was out in the shed, and they were going to go out and see the body of their dead son. So as Randy's walking out, gunfire erupts. Randy goes down. He's been wounded. Kevin Harris was also wounded. So the mom opens the door and she's like, what the hell's going on? You know, and they open up the, they're like, Dad's been shot. And she opens the door. She's like, get back in the house. So everybody's coming back in the house, running, back in the house. And all of a sudden, kablooey, Mom hits the ground, dead. Vicki Weaver was shot dead by one of these HRT snipers. Okay? Shot dead by an HRT sniper. So, I'm getting ready to get into this a little bit here. I don't want to go too terribly long, but when she was shot, there's a few key things here that are big. One, what was she holding? Was she holding a gun? No, she was actually holding the baby. So she's shot and she's killed. She's holding the baby. With the baby in her arms, she's shot dead by a sniper. Now, the sniper, he actually holds a lot of relevance here. I actually posted his picture up on the Barbarian Lounge Facebook page. And because a lot of people don't know a whole lot about him. I remember him. The sniper was a gentleman by the name of Lon Horiuchi. Okay? Lon Horiuchi. And why does it matter, who he was? Well, there's a lot of importance to him for a couple reasons. One of the reasons is obviously, he shot a lady who was clearly not armed holding a baby. So there's a problem there, okay? You shot a mother holding a child, no weapon on her, no weapon to be found. You shot her dead through a sniper scope. Do not tell me, oops, I didn't know that she wasn't armed. She was outside the house, holding the door open, and you shot her dead through your sniper scope. And this guy, former military, one of their top snipers. Well, Mr. Horiuchi also holds another mantle amongst massacres. This guy was also at Waco. He was in one of the, I think it was the Sierra 1 position, which was a sniper position in Waco when they were issuing the search warrant. So, in the moment you see, everybody always sees the moment where the guys were going through the window and then they get shot at the Waco thing, and everybody goes, oh my God, well there's proof. There's proof that the Davidians were shooting them. Well, actually all that happened under cover of gunfire. Okay? All that was happening, the gunfire had already erupted from the ground where they were shooting back and forth between each other. Mostly, from what I understand, most of that gunfire was coming from law enforcement on the ground. But what led to that initial barrage of gunfire was a report that shots had been fired from inside the compound. Do you know who reported those shots? Lon Horiuchi. Lon Horiuchi reported those shots. He was set up in that position. He was armed with a rifle. And it later came out that the first shots, there were indeed gunshots fired. Because, you know what? The people on the ground heard it too. But you know who fired those shots? Lon Horiuchi. A lot of people think that those first shots came from the FBI when they were setting up the raid. There was a kennel set up there. And surprise, surprise, those first shots, there were 8 dogs in the kennel. 8 dogs were dead at the end of the whole thing. And when they went up to this sniper position, after the whole thing was over with, they found some spent shell casings. Next to where? The position that Lon Horiuchi was set up in. And guess how many there were? There were 8 shell casings. So a lot of people are saying that the very first shots that were fired in Waco was actually from the same guy that fired the shots that killed Vicki Weaver. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about. So you have a guy that has a history of fucking up, who's been countless times on trial for fucking up in his sniper position, continuously getting put in positions to make decisions that affect the lives of other people. there's a big problem there. They found the spent shell casings there. He's the guy that supposedly reported shots were fired as he was shooting. Numerous reports from his fellow snipers were that he was the guy that opened fire first. So it's like, people don't know. It's like, you know, is he the guy that set the whole thing off? Is he the guy that set the whole thing off? Who knows? We know he's the guy that killed Vicky Weaver because he was going to be charged. And guess what? He was acquitted. The same as he was in Waco. Isn't that something? The guy gets acquitted twice for committing fucked up acts behind a scope. And, you know, the whole argument was that he never knew. Like they never knew that Vicky Weaver was dead. The whole time they said, you know, because this whole thing, they played it off as, we didn't know Vicky Weaver was dead. We had no clue she was dead. And it's like, you mean to tell me you were looking through a scope, fired the shot, and don't tell me that it was just you sitting up there behind the scope, because I know you got a spotter with you. And you mean to tell me you did not see her dead body after you fired that shot lying on the ground? That they drug her back in the house? Fuck you. You, sir, are a liar. You, sir, are a liar. If you didn't see him, I know that your spotter did. And then they say, well, you know, we didn't get word down from the mountain for a long time. Oh, so you mean to tell me that in the early 90s, you guys didn't have access to radios? So the police were not using radios during this time, okay? And you just stayed up there. None of you guys come down. You just slept up there. And obviously, give me a break. For them to say that they had no clue that she was dead is a lie, just from a logical standpoint. There's no way those guys are going to stay up there. There's no way they're not going to radio down what's been happening. And then after they killed, this is the most sadistic part. After they killed the wife, this HRT team that's around the position, they're bullhorning the house because there's no phone or anything, right? They're bullhorning the house and they're like, hey, Randy, what's Vicky cooking for dinner? Hey, Randy, are the kids coming out to play? Hey, Randy, is Vicky feeding the kids? Hey, and they just constantly were taunting this guy about his wife. Constantly. Oh, well, you see, that is one thing that pissed me off about the documentary, on the PBS documentary on Netflix, is they're like, oh, you know, we didn't know. How did you not know? You mean to tell me between the guy behind the scope, and trust me, I'm sure there were numerous guys behind scopes, the spotters and everything, and yes, you got a spotter. Don't lie to me and tell me you don't. But behind all of that, you mean to tell me that you guys had no clue she was dead? That she was not dead there on the floor? That is a lie, sir. That is an absolute 100% lie. So, you know, and it's funny, you know, when you look at, like, all the stuff that led up to it, when I was talking about the militarization, you watch on the documentary, you know, I talked about how they look. I mean, these guys are walking around in fatigues. They've got, like, an army base set up with Hueys flying in and fucking tanks going around. It looks like a military operation. That's a problem. You cannot put that level of power in the hands of a peace officer. You can't do it. You would think they had a freaking army on top of that mountain, not a family. But yes, they harassed and, you know, and they bullhorned him, asked him, you know, how's the wife doing? All these things like that. They fucking knew that they had put a bullet through her face. Disgusting. So eventually, Randy Weaver was talked down. He eventually did end up surrendering throughout the whole thing. Kevin Harris was wounded. He was actually treated and lived. You know, Randy Weaver, he ended up being arrested, and they tried to charge them with the murder of the U.S. Marshal, but both he and Harris were acquitted on that. And I do believe that the Weaver family ended up suing the FBI, ended up getting like $3 million. You know, thanks. You know, my kids had to sit in that house for days with my wife's body lying there. My daughter had chunks of my wife's brain on her face afterwards. So thanks for the $3 million, guys. I appreciate it. So, you know, at the end of all this, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna do a last call here. Last call, guys. Last call. Let me take a drink. So, at the end of all this, the big question becomes, okay, whose fault is it? Whose fault? And, it's funny, at the end of the documentary, they're like, you can always kind of go about whose fault it was, but, at the end of the day, it was, bad decisions made here, made there. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you whose fault it was. Because let me tell you, they tried to say that, oh, well, it goes back to Randy Weaver and his family having these extremist beliefs and wanting to go back up there and getting involved with the wrong people. And, the FBI made some mistakes. I'll tell you whose fault it is. The fault is of the federal government. Plain and simple. Randy Weaver was not up there making fucking sawed-off shotguns. He wasn't up there doing illegal shit. Did he have some extremist ideologies? You can say so. White supremacists? Okay, whatever. People can believe what they want to believe. But he wasn't committing acts of violence against anybody. He was a guy that wanted to be left alone. A guy that wanted to be left alone. And then an FBI agent shows up like the fucking witch with some with the poisoned apple, right? To Snow White. It's like, here, just take a little bite of this apple. Everything will be just fine. And they're like, hey, Randy, you want to make just a little bit of extra money? Maybe buy yourself a new generator? Here, why don't you just saw this barrel off for me and everything will be fine. That's how it all set off. Because they wanted an informant and they were willing to destroy anything in their path to provide that informant for them. That's how the game is played. All of you guys out, and this is the whole reason I did this show. It's the whole issue, Randy Weaver, okay, it's over with, it's done, whatever. It's, okay, it's no crying over spilled milk, right? But here's the thing. All of you guys out there that have groups, all of you guys out there that are building tribes, all of you guys out there that are starting this, starting that, vet your people. I cannot tell you how many people I've seen wanting to start a group, and I'll see just a fucking Facebook group. You have to understand, this was all happening face to face at the time. Okay? This was happening face to face at the time. It wasn't no Facebook. People post stupid shit on Facebook. I can't tell you how many groups I see on Facebook where some guy will come in there and he's like, hey, any of you guys ever tried microdosing LSD? And people are like, oh, well, I've tried a little bit of microdosing LSD. How about you? Well, I've never tried it, but I would be interested. What's a good place to get some? And before you know it, people are fucking chattering and, the FBI guys on the other side are like, yes. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how people cannot grasp the idea that if you do not think that COINTELPRO operations are out there that invade these things, that talk people into doing stupid shit, you are vastly mistaken. COINTELPRO is a real thing. It is a real operation. It has run forever. Man, there are instances of groups like the Hells Angels, and you know how tight it is to get into something like that. There are instances where people have went so far as to have an informant get married to a member of the Hells Angels, have children with them and everything, and as it's all said and done, that agent sells them down the river in the end because it was their job to do it. That is deep undercover shit right there. If you do not think that the FBI or any other federal agency is not willing to infiltrate your group and is not willing to push the time, you are sadly mistaken. You are sadly mistaken, because they will weasel their little ways in there and they'll set up an informant. They'll arrest somebody on a bullshit charge. They'll let them out a little bit early and, hey, just help us out. We'll help you out. We're all just trying to help each other here. You want to live a good life, don't you? You don't want to live your life behind bars. Any group that's got guys in it that have been in prison, that have gotten out early, or any paroles and shit like that, I'm telling you, you better keep your eye out for that group. You better keep your eyes out for them, because those are the types of people that they turn. People always wonder why I've got such a harsh vetting process and I don't just let people in. You come fucking visit Odinson and I meet you. Dude, there are keys to the kingdom that you're not getting. There's keys to the kingdom you're not getting. People only get let in so far, and too many people are too willing to just open the doors and let everybody walk in because they pat you on the back and say, brother. That's not the way the game is to be played. I'm telling you, if you think that your group is too tight to be infiltrated, you are mistaken. You are mistaken. They will send agents in. They will send anybody they can to come in there and ruffle your feathers a little bit, to get you to say something stupid. Hey, man,